Assalamu alaikum. So we would start the program with a few opening remarks from our Imam and the chairman. Over to you, sir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحابه أجمعين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we glorify Him. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon the noblest of mankind, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his family and the companions and all those who follow his footsteps until the day of resurrection. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We were not able to hold any of our workshops last year because of the new normal, the condition we find ourselves now because of the COVID-19. We pray Almighty Allah Azza wa Jalla to relieve us of this calamity. May Allah rescue us from this pandemic. May Allah forgive us our sins. So, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been so kind and generous to us. He has made the world better than it was before, especially in communication. So we can reach out to one another, even though we may not be able to meet physically, but we can still see one another and talk to one another and hold several meetings and discussions virtually. Alhamdulillah, that Allah has blessed us with this kind of technology. Today, what we are going to do is the first quarterly workshop, inshallah, and we have our capable and competent faculty who are going to undo the programs. And our chairman is hereby present with us. They are going to be introduced shortly, inshallah. And our president is very much available, who is going to also give his opening remarks.
Assalamu alaikum, President. Yeah, on President. Yeah, on, sir. You can give your opening remarks, sir.
Okay. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I hope the chairman of LEMU is joining us and the members of Board of Trustees, the Vice President, our chairman of today, our revered and seasoned lecturers of today, distinguished brothers and sisters in Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you today to yet another edition of our quarterly Dawah, where contemporary issues are intellectually discussed for the benefit of Muslims, brothers and sisters. May I especially welcome our chairman of today's occasion, Dr. Bashir Oshodi, a friend of LEMU and a benefactor of LEMU, who has been of tremendous assistance to our cause. May God Almighty continue to bless you, Dr. Bashir. As you all are aware, we have two not unrelated topics today on our agenda. These are the contemporary topics on the mind of Nigerians in particular, and the right to say the word in general. We thank the Almighty Allah for his magnanimity for the protection of our nation. But for him, the devastating pandemics can be much worse. If you look at this in consideration of our inadequacies of our medical infrastructure compared with the pattern of the same disease in the well-developed world, alhamdulillah. While Alhaji Niyi Yusuf will enlighten us as the options available for the post-COVID-19 economic recovery, Alhaji Rwan Sanusi will educate us on how we can develop entrepreneurial spirit. These topics will be further discussed by our professional gurus of Alhaji Ayo Salami and Alhaji Tajuddin Shobayo, to be moderated by our sister Amida Sulaiman, another top-notch consultant from KPMG. We will benefit immensely to listen to these lectures attentively and take note as appropriate. When I look at the caliber of our lecturer and discussants for today, I feel proud to be a Muslim in our own environment, alhamdulillah. Permits me also to use the opportunity to implore you eminent people joining us today to make your generous donation to our various Dawah projects in Lemu. A little over a year ago, I appealed on occasion like this for donation towards 160 million hostel for Lekki Quran Memorization College. Alhamdulillah, we hope to complete this building in the next 6 weeks, inshallah. But I'm still on my knees begging for further donation in cash or in kind to furnish this beautiful edifice. I urge you to support us with your donations in cash and in kind so that these projects can be accomplished in good time. Another reason I would really appeal to you eminent people today is that we'll be trying to resuscitate our membership. We need to sustain the credibility of our organization. We have a lot of well-to-do people. We need to showcase our cause. Presently, we are not getting the image we deserve. We have enough people who matter in the society. I think we deserve to get better. Part of this we are trying to do by reorganizing our Lemu society in such a way the membership the membership component is well organized, is able to sustain. It's okay for us to periodically get feasibility. For any serious organization, it should be sustainable. And this we can do, no matter how small. You are the person to decide how much your membership fee will be. What is more important is to be able to get steady sources of income. And this pandemic has actually taught a lot of lessons. For instance, we find that we could not aggregate as we usually do in mosque. The little stipend we tend to get tend to evaporate. Whereas if there's a membership base, it could be much easier. So at the end of this organization or this presentation today, I probably will reach out to all of you. I know you are members, you are friends of Lemu, but it's not the same thing as being a financial register member. May God make it easy for you. You can kindly issue your check in favor of Lekki Meruma, and I'm sure the bank details will be displayed on the chat venue of this procedure. May God bless all of you. Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much.
All right, Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
So we would kick off the program with Alhaji Yusuf, who will be taking us through the post-COVID-19 economic recovery, the options available. So Alhaji Yusuf is the managing partner of Verily Partners.
The chairman of the workshop has not made a speech.
Hello?
The chairman of the workshop.
Okay.
Dr. Bashir.
If it's possible, my screen can be shared. That'll be nice. If not, I'll just run through it.
You can go ahead and share the screen.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to do that. Very fantastic. But very importantly, I want to talk about the fact.
Sorry, please, can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, lovely. Okay. Today I'm going to talk about, I'll give a very quick overview of what our country looks like. in terms of overall economic development, right? But more importantly, I'll try and create a lead, if you like, to the speakers, which is basically around options for economic recovery and entrepreneurial spirits. First and foremost, there's what we call predictable surprises. Predictable surprises are things that will surely happen, regardless of any factor, right? These things will surely happen. So let's look at the Nigerian economy very quickly and the kind of, and where we find ourselves, right? So first and foremost, let's look at non-performing asset or non-performing loans. In any economy, when there's depression or when the economy is hit by some kind of shocks, loans will get bad, right? When it get bad, even under Islamic finance, assets get bad, and there's a trend that shows this over the last 40 years in Nigeria, over the last 40 years, right? So that's a predictable surprise, right? And when that happens, the economy keeps going down, right? Secondly, FX. In the last 35 years, FX has depreciated by at least 6% on the average in the last 30 years, right? What that shows, so from 1985, when the dollar was to, the Naira was stronger than the dollar, in fact, but by now, you realize that it's something else, right? That is a predictable surprise. That affects a lot of other developments, right? Let's look at budgetary allocation to education. In Nigeria, it's barely 7% in the last 2-3 years. That is tiny, right? When education is weak, what happens is that a lot of people won't get good jobs because they're not well qualified. At the same time,
you said that to drop something.
It then affects the ability of the country to produce the best hands. So those out of school, there are over 16 million out of school. That's more than the population of Denmark, Norway, and Finland, right? That's a terrible case. Now, again, these are things that will be there regardless of COVID, right? So what COVID is also now doing is it's having more shocks on the economy. But before we get to where COVID is, let's look at budgetary allocation to health. It's barely 5%, 5.7% in the last 3 years on the average. That's about the worst case in the world. So assuming there was no COVID at all, at least 200,000 people would die from malaria every year. Apart from another 200,000 from HIV/AIDS, apart from other preventable diseases, right? Apart from, 900,000 women, they miss death through pregnancy or miscarriage or something. They just miss death narrowly in Nigeria, right? So COVID has killed 1,500 people. That's a lot. But malaria has killed, within the same period, at least 200,000 people, right? We have the poorest sanitation in the world. So why I'm going through all of this is because regardless of any shock in the economy, we already have our own natural shock that affects entrepreneurship, that affects even the recovery of the economy, right? Because even if there were no problems, the economy will still struggle, at this time, right? So again, let me quickly go to something else, right? Let's look at investment in COVID, right? So for those that do conventional finance, which is not allowed, right? T-bills, bonds, all the rates are below 1% or plus or minus, right? Very low. So, that's closed investment opportunity in those areas, right? Again, what investments can we then have? What kind of investment on the assets and the liability side? By asset, if you like, loans, which is not the most appropriate word under Islamic finance. And by liability, what kind of deposit are you going to have? Can you have investment in Sukuk? Are they available? Are there private equity deals? Are they available? In what area are we going to have them? That's the new thing. So I would love private equity for, say, technology-based investments. Where are they coming from? Are they going to come from abroad? One about 3 of the capital that enters Nigeria right now is into technology, which is fantastic. Those are areas that recovery can take place very quickly, right? And that's because, infrastructure is still one of the poorest in the world, and we've not seen adequate sukuk, right? That will help us capture that. So very quickly, let's look at the percentage of the debt market, if you like, the bond market, in Nigeria, in relation to, say, the sukuk. Sukuk is just 0.7% or less, slightly less than 1% of the overall bond market. That is tiny, right? And let's look at debt, if you like, loans, right? Islamic finance, for example, is just 0.3% of the total loan in Nigeria, right? And again, we found out that the back of all of this may not necessarily be from among the Muslims, right? So that is a major gap. So Sukuk is down, private equity is struggling, trade finance fund, if you keep your money in the bank, you get very little, equities are there, but they're very volatile. They're still volatile, even though they performed quite well last year, right? But these challenges are still there. REITs, real estate, looks interesting, but if you don't get payback in good time, it kills the entire investment. So the REITs market has also struggled, even with the one that, that got the Sharia compliance back, sometime last year, right? So when you don't have adequate investments to put money in, it's also a problem because it means that your money is not working. That affects the overall economy. Now, lastly, before the speakers take over, let's quickly look at, the ability to create assets, if you like, what we call facilities or loans, right? Let's look at it within the realm quickly of what is Sharia compliant, So a lot of people, a lot of our Muslim brothers and sisters usually find it difficult to be eligible for a lot of these transactions, right? However, the central bank, the Apex Bank, has come up with lovely intervention scheme where people can get funds at less than 10%, about 9%, using several Islamic finance contracts. The problem then is how do we get this facility out? Because typically, and I say this with utmost authority, 80 to 90% of those people that are in serious production in this country are not from amongst us. In the same vein, that same figure as reflected even in the Islamic economic system in Nigeria or Islamic finance world in Nigeria, if you like. It means that those people that take facility, from non-interest financial institutions, 90% of them are not from amongst us. So it then means that even these intervention funds that we're talking about, we're going to realize very quickly that those that will be getting them are not going to be amongst us. And those are the problems. So our ability to produce, to be engaged in entrepreneurial activities, our entrepreneurial zeal, how do we wake it up? And how do we wake it up quickly? I'm not going to bore you with a lot of these figures. I'm going to allow our speakers to take the bulk of, to take this topic further. But again, lastly, there could be, even under a typical or a convenient Islamic finance environment, if you like, there can still be impacts of COVID on the operations of Islamic finance. Again, like I mentioned earlier on, in Nigeria, even if there were no problems at all, the economy, has been going down. It's still going down because certain decisions they've not been taken, or they're still very poor compared to most other countries, even African countries. So with the impact of a new variable called COVID, right, that's eating deeply into the economy even further, it means that if you are engaged in a debt contract under Islamic finance, by debt contract, I mean, sale transactions or lease transactions. I buy you a car for 50 million naira, for maybe 10 million naira, and I sell it to you at, say, 15 million naira. You pay over a 4-year period. That's debt. If you drive in the Lagoon, you're owing. I rent you my house. You don't. You're supposed to pay me. If you don't pay, you're owing. So they are debt, even though it's Islamic finance. Now, a lot of debt contracts have been heavily affected by the pandemic, right? More so the sale contract where you cannot reprice, right? So these effects, and because 70%, if not more, of Islamic finance transactions are debt, it means there's an impact on even Islamic finance, except perhaps equity. Equity has its own unique risk, right? Then of course there's the agency contract. Now, I should give a picture to say that regardless of the pandemic, right? Regardless of, how much we try, the entrepreneurial zeal and our readiness for business, our readiness to increase productivity and production generally is slim. And so because it's slim, the resulting effects then becomes even negative. On this note, I'm going to allow our speakers to in detail address the issues around our recovery process. Again, like I mentioned earlier on, there is predictable surprises. It's surprise that will happen. And I've tried to mention a few of them. And because of decisions that we have taken in the past and decisions that we are yet to correct even now. On the basis of that, I'll just stop there and pass it on to the organizers to continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for your opening remarks. They were very insightful. So I would call on Alajini Yusuf, the managing partner of Verily Partners, now to take us through his presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Bismillah.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, so thank you very much for that, for the opportunity. And let me try to share my screen. If network will allow me to. Now I am struggling. Options. And I think my network is misbehaving.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello. I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Alajini Yusuf, maybe you can take off your video if you make the presentation better.
I think he's left the room.
Yeah.
Let's try to bring him in. I think he's having some technical challenges. We'll try again.
If the session is full, he might not be able to join again if he has dropped off. If somebody can contact him on phone, that will help.
Okay, thank you.
Please ask him to reconnect. Apologies, we will have to remove one or two of you from the meeting so that our speaker can reconnect. We apologize for this. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, I think he has reconnected because I can see him now. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Okay, we can see his screen now.
Is my screen showing now?
Yes, your screen is showing.
Okay, all right. Alhamdulillah. So apologies for that. I have two networks. MTN and SWIFT. But what will happen will happen. All right, so thank you so much for the opportunity, and let me just quickly go through the presentation. Today I'll be sharing my thoughts around the economic recovery options post-COVID-19. So like Dr. Bashir Oshodi had shared, I also thought to first start from the Nigerian economy before COVID-19. And before COVID-19, the Nigerian economy was one area or two areas where the economy improved, which was in terms of the ease of doing business. You will recall during the first term of the Buhari administration, there were specific initiatives at improving ease of doing business. And so we moved from 145th in the world to 131. And the aspiration is that we'll be amongst the first 100. So that's the aspiration. So we are still 31 places to go. So it is difficult to do business in Nigeria. I think that's the very first thing that this ease of doing business tells us. Now, in terms of things that have not changed, in Global Tourism Index, we are still the third place in the world. Tourism has taken deep roots. Nigeria is a fragile state. And in terms of Human Development Index, we are number 158 in the world. In terms of human development index, that speaks to education, health, life expectancy, etc. But there are areas where things are getting bad. Corruption, things are getting bad. Enabling trade, things are getting bad. We are not enabling trade. Global competitiveness, things are bad. FDI, things are also bad. There's limited FDI, foreign direct investment coming to the country. We are not enabling trade. Apapa ports, Tinkan ports, we know how many days and weeks it takes to import or to export. And inflation is getting worse, and poverty is also getting worse. And so that's the situation of the country. It's low national competitiveness, with the number of indices getting worse. Now, if I speak a bit around health, Nigeria represents 2% of the population of the world, but we account for 40% of global maternal death. When young mothers die, we account for 40% of that. And 10% of every newborn in the country dies. And 1 out of every Nigerian child dies before the age of 5. 95% of us live without health insurance, so we pay out of pocket. And in this, 7% of health expenses are paid out of pocket. And we have the highest rate of depression in Africa. Now, in terms of education, Bashir had alluded to this. We have 30 million kids who are out of school, of which 72% of them are Muslims in the Al-Majiri system in the north. We have early childhood marriage, and indeed we have a population of 23 million child brides. That's the second highest in the world, where kids are wives. In Nigeria today, only 14% of girls from low-income family complete primary school, 14%. And so we continue to perpetuate illiteracy. While China, with a population of 1.3 billion. China has 97%, 106 million. We have just 62% adult literacy level. And the average undergraduates spent 2 years. 86% of graduates are still unemployed 2 years after NYSC. And what has led to is a situation where poverty level has increased from 27% in 1980. Poverty level has increased to 62%. And we today now have about half of us living in extreme poverty. That means half of us spend less than 800 naira a day. Youth unemployment level is about 38%. So 4 out of every 10 youths are not employed. 36% of our adult population remain financially excluded. They are not in the financial, they don't have access to any financial services. 45% of us don't have access to electricity. And 99.8% of us do not have access to formal credit facilities. And as of 2017, according to NDIC, only 1.2 million people had over 500,000 balance in their bank accounts out of a population of almost 200 million. Of the 85 million people who are in the workforce, 50% have only primary education, and so they are mostly in the agricultural sector. And the richest 50% of us account for about 55% of total income. So income inequality is very skewed. And the richest 10% account for 40% or 41% of income. Now, the other thing is looking at poverty. Poverty is clearly associated with the North, and some will say with Islam. There's a correlation between large household size and level of poverty. And so you have states like Jigawa, Bauchi, Yobe, where average family size is 6 and they have significant poverty level. And if you look at the map on the left, the darker reds represent very high levels of poverty, and those are Muslim North, that can use that word. And so poverty seems to be associated with Islam, yet it is give us goodness of this world and the goodness of the hereafter. In terms of household spend, the average Nigerian spends 64.7% of his income on food. And if you look at a state like Osun, the average person spends more than 50% of his income on stash, whether it's gari or eba or cassava or whatever. So the average guy spends 64% of his income on food. And when you had clothing and rent, that goes to 81.5% of income. So food, clothing, and rent accounts for 81.5% of household spend. And by the time you had transportation, health, and education, that goes to 93.7%. That's 94%. And so the average household has very little room to do anything beyond feeding, clothing, rent, buying paracetamol, going to school, and nothing more. Now, that has consistently been an issue. So this table shows from 2003 to 2019. So it's not a new issue. As at 2003, the average person was spending 7.8% of his income on food, and that has reduced to 56.6% in 2019. But if you take the total, 2019, the average person still spends 71.9% on food, clothing, and shelter. And by the time you add health, education, and transport, it goes to 93.2. So the point I'm making is that the poverty is so endemic that the average Nigerian barely has room for savings, for investment, or to respond to any shocks, because the bulk of his income is spent on food, clothing, housing, health, education, transportation. It's been the case, it's the case now, and it has been the case since 2003. And so we've been going through a long cycle of tough economic situation. Now, in the last few years, the economy has been transitioning from agriculture to services. And services now account for more than 50% of the economy, followed by agriculture, and then followed by industries. Oil has a big influence on the economy, but oil accounts for less than 10% of our GDP. But it's just that oil is the bulk of the revenue that the government has. And the map, the statistics here shows how our real GDP has been below 2% since 2015. And so we've been struggling. And the GDP growth is influenced by the growth in the oil sector. So the oil sector is the one that's not been growing, largely because there has been a crash in the price of crude oil. And that in itself has affected the economy. But before COVID, so we have 6 big sectors in the economy: agriculture, trade, manufacturing, oil and gas, telecoms, and real estate. Before COVID, only telecoms and agriculture were growing. The other 4 sectors were not growing. Trade and distribution, negative growth. Manufacturing, barely 0.1, 0.4 growth. Oil and gas, barely. Real estate, negative growth. So really, it's been telecoms and agriculture that has been driving the economy of Nigeria even before COVID. And if you look at foreign direct investment, FDI in Nigeria has been constantly less than $1 billion since 2016. It's been $1 billion of foreign direct investment. Meanwhile, a country like China records $1.6 trillion, $1 trillion of foreign direct investment. And so capital is not flowing to the economy, and capital has not been flowing to the economy since 2015 or thereabout. But beyond capital, if you look at the credit to the private sector, Nigeria has one of the lowest credits going to the private sector as a function of overall GDP. Malaysia has, in 2019, Malaysia had 120% of credits going to the private sector as a function of GDP. South Africa, 139.47%. Kenya, 27.55%. Sub-Saharan Africa, on the average is about 45%. But Nigeria, it's less than 15%. And so money is not going to the private sector. Foreign direct investment is not coming in. Credit is not available for the private sector. And so what that has led to is a case where we have small businesses and we have a lot of people working in the agricultural sector, because in the agricultural sector that you can farm just one plot or half a plot, or you can have a fish pond. Once you have a drum, you can do a fish pond. Once you have a small plot, you can start rearing chicken. So we have a lot of people going to agriculture, but not at scale. So sadly, in 2013, we had 37.1 million MSMEs, of which 4,000 of them were medium. Medium have between 50 to 250 employees. But by 2017, we had 41.5 million MSMEs, but the number of medium companies, the number of companies recruiting 50 persons and above reduced from 4,000 plus, reduced to 1,700. So we are growing more MSMEs, but we are growing more small micro enterprises. I mean, we are growing, these are individuals who have lost their jobs in the formal sector and who have decided to be independent consultants. This is a father and a mother and a child that have set up a kiosk. So we're having more small kiosk and roadside businesses for a number of reasons. And according to a Smidan survey, the top 5 reasons, and I know we all understand this, is access to capital, it's electricity issue, access to power, corruption, tax, and transportation logistics. And so before COVID, we had small enterprises who were struggling, who didn't have access to capital, who didn't have power or electricity, who were affected by corruption, tax, and whatever. And then COVID came. And COVID became a major disruptor. And what COVID did was to lead to a lot of lockdown, closed businesses. And today everybody is working from home. Most of us are using Zoom and Google Meets and Hangout, and we're all working using telecoms because there is digitalization, which we've used to get over the temporary restrictions. And most of us now, you go about wearing a mask. And my view is that the way the world changed, there was a time when you didn't need to wear a seatbelt when you were driving a car. But now it's mandatory that you wear a seatbelt. There was a time where you didn't need to wear a helmet if you are riding an Okada or if you are riding a bicycle. But now everybody wears helmet, everybody wears seatbelt. Because those are things we need to do to respond to changes in the environment. And so I suspect that perhaps wearing face masks may become a permanent feature of our life. The same way wearing a seatbelt or wearing a helmet has become a permanent feature of our lives today. So COVID, to my mind, will make some permanent changes to the way we work and the way we live. And may God forgive all our dead ones and keep us alive beyond this particular pandemic. Now, what COVID has also done is it has led to an economic recession in the country. Now, even though growth in Nigeria has been reducing, 2010 we grew 9.5%, 2011 reduced to 7.4%, then 6, 5.5, 6, 2. So the economy was already going downwards. From 2011, things have been going down south. And then we had the first economic shock in 2016, we had the negative growth. And then we've been growing 0.1%, 2%. And now in 2020, another negative growth. We estimate about negative 2% growth in 2020. And so COVID has taken us back into our second recession in less than 4 or 5 years. And 2020 one, by most estimates, the federal government projects 3% growth, IMF 2%, World Bank 1%, African Development Bank 0.7%. My suspicion is that we probably will grow 1% at best in 2021. And so the economy has been severely affected by COVID due to lockdown, social distancing, restrictions, etc. And the rate of growth in 2021 will be influenced by how quickly we're able to vaccinate ourselves and get the economy open and growing again. But I'm not so optimistic. The other thing COVID has done is also to affect different sectors differently. So if you look at 2020, the finance industry benefited the most. So you have fintechs, people who, you could use USSD to make payments, you could use your application to withdraw money, you could get credits from so many fintechs now. So the financial industry grew the most, followed by the technology and telecoms industry. Data, we're all using buying data, so they also grew. And then the third growth came from water supply and waste management. And then you have health and a bit of agriculture. So those are the 5 sectors that grew, that expanded in 2020. Financial services, information and communication technology, water and waste management, health, and agriculture. So again, it speaks to food, water that we drink, health, and communication, right? While all other sectors had contraction. Now, if you compare that to 2019, in 2019, the greatest growth we had came from coal, road transport, air transport, then telecoms, and of course, water supply. So we can understand why road and air transport will not grow in 2020, because there was literally lockdown for many months. And then after lockdown, we had NSAS. And then, so the question is, will this reshaping of these industry sectors, will it be permanent or will it go back to normal? My suspicion is that finance, commerce continue to go, and then transportation will go back. Once we have the vaccination and people can be moving up and about, I expect transportation to go up. I expect accommodation to also go up. But just to show that the impact of the COVID-19 has affected different sectors differently, and financial services, ICT, water and waste management, health and agriculture were the gainers last year. And of course, that underpins the fact that every disruption creates opportunity. Every disruption creates opportunity. And the challenge is for us as individuals, as companies, as enterprises to see how we can tap into these opportunities. I've shared a few of businesses that were formed in 2008, 2009, during the global mortgage crisis. That was when WhatsApp was created. That was when Airbnb was created. That was when Uber was created. These are companies we all can relate with. That was when Pinterest was created, or Square. These are all companies created during the mortgage crisis, the global mortgage crisis of 2008. The same way, iconic brands like Microsoft, like IBM, like the hotel chain Hyatt or Disney were also created during periods of crisis and periods of economic recessions. So the point I'm making is COVID presents an opportunity for those who can tap into it and create something out of this disruption. And if you're going to do that, You can choose to look at the big sectors of the economy or the fastest growing sectors. The big sectors of the economy are agriculture, because we must eat, natural crude oil, manufacturing, construction, trade, ICT, and a bit of real estate. While the fastest growing are waste management, construction, water, financial services, education, etc. Right, so those present opportunities. But for me, I think there are 10 areas where we all can choose to look at and see the opportunities for growth or the opportunities for value creation. You can look at food, and in food, because the 200 million Nigerians will eat every day, even if it's 101 or 001, but they must eat every day. Whether you are eating Indomie or you are eating jollof rice, you must eat something every day. And so that presents an opportunity for anybody who wants to be in the food industry. Either you're providing inputs, you're part of the production, storage, processing, or you are in the restaurants, or you're a worker, or what you do is help to collect waste from restaurants. That's just part of the food business. So that business to look at is clothing, because 200 million Nigerians must wear something. Even in the absence of social gatherings and lace and all those funny lace and those fanciful things, you still wear t-shirts. You wear t-shirts. You wear hijab and what have you. So that's opportunity. In the healthcare area, opportunity. In the healthcare, in shelter, in education, in communication, in entertainment. And entertainment, whether it's lottery, it's advertisements, video graphics, electronic games, in transportation, in water supply, and in security. And so if you recall the household spend, the average person spends 94% of his income on 6 items: food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, and transportation. That's 94% of income. By the time you had communication and water, you get about 96% of income. And so what we need to ask ourselves is, how do you want to play in this value chain? Do you want to be a thinker who comes up with the idea, or do you want to be a builder or a producer or an improver? But there are opportunities throughout all of these 10 basic needs that the average Nigerian, 206 million of us, spend on a daily basis. Now, if we step back a bit and look at the global economy itself has evolved. You know, we started off, our great-grandfather started off as hunters who were chasing and killing rabbits, mouse, and what have you. And then we became farmers, and we used animals to plow the land to farm. And then steam engine came in, combustion engine, and then we moved into the industrial age. And since the late 90s, we've moved into the internet age, and now we're in the connection economy, in the social economy, where it's all about relationships. How many friends do you have? How many likes do you have? How many retweets do you have? And so that's the way the global economy has moved. So it's moved from an hunter economy to a connection economy. And so the question for us is, how are you connected into that economy? Into that economy, yes, if you leverage technology. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, we have about 2 minutes left for us to take the discussion as well. Okay.
All right, so at the beginning, you should have told me how many minutes I have to present, ma'am. But I take it 20 minutes, 2 minutes more. All right, so technology is shaping the world, And it's for each and everybody to be connected into that social economy by using technology so that you are not left behind. The drivers of growth are capital, labor, and technology. And if you notice in Nigeria, we have low access to capital. Even though the venture capital firms are now investing in startups, we have huge populations, so labor is good, and we need to tap into technology. The other factors of economic growth are your geographic location. So Singapore is well located and it's become a huge refinery and port area. Panama has a Panama Canal that links Atlantic to the Pacific, or the actions of government. And one action for Nigeria will be the African Union Agenda 2063. And of course, after the African Free Trade Area. So one more minute, the AU agenda as a Pan-African market, where we'll have high-speed trade network connecting all the cities, where we'll have the free continental trade area. There'll be an African passport for free movement of people, and there will be a single air transport market amongst 15 items. So it's for each person to see how you can claim to those 15. But Africa presents an opportunity of 1.3 billion consumer markets, of which 206 million of them are from Nigeria. And you can talk about food, clothing, shelter, again, consistent, the same thing. The basic needs, healthcare, financial services. So they're relevant in Nigeria, they're also relevant in Africa. So in closing, let me say that, like Bashir, you have the known unknowns. You have the known knowns. The known knowns are the things we know will happen. The government will continue to upgrade infrastructure. They will continue to invest in social investment. And they will continue to tax us so that they can have money. We'll continue to have internal security issues. And the best of us will continue to migrate out of the country. Those are the known knowns. We have the known unknowns, the things we do not know a lot about, but we suspect may happen. We don't know how the implementation of after, what it's going to mean. We don't know when the Dangote refinery will be up and running. We don't know the impact of President Biden and global economy, or if global mobility will resume soon once the COVID vaccine is up and about. Now we have the unknown unknowns, things we don't know that we do not know. We do not know what will continue with the insecurity in the country, or whether COVID-19 mutations will affect us hugely, or whether the government will privatize and bring in private expertise. Those are the unknown unknowns. But essentially, for us as individuals, and I have just one more slide. For us as individuals, we just need to place scenarios, and scenarios where entrepreneurs can thrive, or where civil service can thrive. And if you are in an economy where, for us, the price of oil goes up, insecurity is reduced, ease of doing business is better, the economic growth, then entrepreneurs will thrive. But otherwise, if it's a dark scenario, then we better go and join the civil service, because it's public service that will thrive. And like Amanda Gorman said, there is always a light, and at the end of every dark tunnel, sunshine will come. So the question really is, if we are brave enough to see the light, or if we are brave enough to be part of it. But Nigeria as an economy will survive COVID, and how you and I get out of it is a function of how you and I position. And I hope Allah will grant us relief after this hardship. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك سبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for your very insightful presentation, sir. So I'm sure we all learned a thing or two from that presentation. So I would hand over now to Alhaji Ayasalami, who will take us through a brief discussion on his thoughts on not only the presentation, but also just his thoughts on the COVID economic recovery, what he thinks the way forward would be, what are the options that people should consider in addition to what Alhaji Yusuf has said. So he will take us through this in the next 10 minutes and we'll continue from there. So Alhaji Ayasalami, please.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Inna alhamdulillah nahmadu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. May yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa qulu qawlan sadida yuslih lakum a'malakum wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum wa man yuti'i Allaha wa rasulahu faqad faza fawzan 'azima. Amma ba'd. Verily, all praise is due to Allah. We thank Him. We seek His help and forgiveness. We seek refuge from Allah from the evils of our souls or from our bad deeds. Verily, whomsoever Allah's guide, nobody can mislead. And whomsoever Allah leaves to stray, nobody can guide. I testify that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah without partners. I also bear witness in His absolute names and sublime attributes. I testify that there is our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His messenger and His slave. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters in Islam. First of all, let me thank the organizers for deeming it fit to invite me to come and be a discussant at this program. Jazakumullah khairan. And then thank my brother Yusuf for the wonderful job he has done. What I simply do is probably to build on what is done. I can obviously not rehash what is done. I'll simply build on it and then hope that inshallah we benefit from the few insights I might be able to share within the 10 minutes I've been allocated. Now, I'll start by, first of all, looking at one key issue that you raised, pre-COVID, and that has to do with the difficulty of business enterprises in Nigeria. And then specifically, I think one thing that we also need to emphasize in that space is the policy inconsistency of our government. And without missing words, this seems to basically discourage either budding enterprises as well as even the current ones. And I give a very good example in this respect. Just last year, about this time last year, when the Finance Act 2019 was passed into law, there were clear indications, for instance, with respect to export proceeds of people who produce goods in Nigeria for exports, where, for instance, before the rule was that those proceeds must be repatriated into the country and then used to procure plant and equipment for those exporters to enjoy tax incentives on their profit. Last year, government thought it was an onerous one to insist that they must bring back those proceeds, and they removed that requirement such that, well, they can keep those products outside the country and then use it to procure items into the country. Just last week, I'm privy to a correspondence from one of the banks with exporters saying that they will break all banking relationship with those exporters on the back of a CBN pronouncement if those exporters don't bring in proceeds of the exports into the country. I mean, we're talking about just a space of 1 year, and then you see conflicting government policies. And I think, again, this is one of those things that seem to discourage and sort of put a stall to our growth as a country. That's one. Second point I would also like to make from the presentation is made is with respect to the expenditure pattern of a typical Nigerian household. wherein it did indicate that over 90% is spent on either food, health, rent, and one or two other items. Clearly, that leaves no room for savings. And based on my elementary knowledge of economics, there is no way you can jumpstart an economy. There's no way you can build an economy when there is no active saving and investment culture. However, in our case, where a typical household has no plan for savings simply because the disposable income is not enough to even meet basic needs, then we're in a quagmire, to be honest. Thirdly, it did mention a lot of things about the growth and the growth statistics with respect to Nigeria. And I was fascinated by the fact that he did mention that for us, the government has said for 2021, our growth projection is about 3%, even though IMF thought it can exceed 1.1%. And then his views were that, look, irrespective of what it is, one key driver to that growth will be the ability of the country to basically import the vaccinations around COVID and the level of vaccination or inoculation we're able to achieve as a country. That said, and I believe it is true, but for me, I think beyond vaccination, because if you look at it really, quite frankly, if you go outside of Lagos, I mean, those who really keep to these COVID protocols are those like you and I, who probably reside mostly in Lagos. Outside Lagos, the story is different. So I think beyond the vaccination, one key element of our economy that might help a quick recovery will be how well or how much the global oil industry plays out post-COVID. And I think that is very, very important because, like he did say, over 30%, according to the government, according to the budget pronouncement, about 30% of the government expected revenue will come from oil. Now, if you look at the trajectory over the years, that normally translates into a significant percentage in terms of foreign exchange reserves or foreign exchange earnings of the government. So in a way, which again drives the other aspects of our economy. So beyond vaccination, I think one big element in the room is how much will the price of oil be, how much quota restrictions we have, which we need to manage, and then how much able to generate from oil in terms of forex, which can then again have cascading effects on other aspects of the economy. So I thought that also made that point. And then I was also, it was also interesting when he did say every disruption creates opportunities for every one of us. And I think that statement is apt. I mean, it's known globally that it's whenever there's a disruption that people think out of the box and in a way fathom how to better manage themselves and then grow the economy. So in that respect, it talked about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which was recently implemented effective January 1st. And I think he said so much about that. I just thought I should also put this on the table. According to the survey carried out by the Center for International Private Enterprise some weeks ago, there were clear indications that only a third of the current medium, small, and micro businesses are aware of these new rules, these new incentives, these new markets that they could actually sell to. In other words, there is depth of information around Africa and the potential impact it could have in jumpstarting our economy. So in other words, even given all the positives around the implementation of that agreement, a significant number of small and medium scale enterprise owners are not aware of this agreement or the potentials that it has to help them grow their business. And I think that there's a need for us to basically do a lot of enlightenment campaign around this so that we can quickly fast track the recovery of the economy through MSMEs, who, like he said, constitutes more than 50% of the GDP. The other one I would also like to talk about is actually the African Growth and Opportunities Act, which was a law passed by the US some 20 years ago. It was meant to have expired 5 years ago or 6 years ago, but later on expanded by additional 10 years. So in other words, it will expire by 2025. Now, what this law does is a non-reciprocal custom relief, wherein companies in Nigeria or Nigerians who desire to export goods to the US may do so, and those goods becomes cheaper in the US because the US government has decided for those goods classified under that law to come to the US free of customs duty, So in a way, it's encouraging Nigerians or Africa as a whole, as it were, to export, develop their local capacity, produce goods in their country, and then export to the US, enjoying custom-free importation into the US. So essentially, that law was actually put in place to build or to enhance the economies of African countries, and thereby also develop their local entrepreneurial capacity. So I think, again, there seems to be lack of information or awareness about this law. Like I said, it's been on for almost 20 years. That's 5 years to go. And I think our entrepreneurs can take advantage of that law to quickly recover from the shock of COVID-19. So many items are covered under that law. We've got clothing. My brother did say about the need for us to given the fact that if you look at the expenditure pattern of household, people must dress, right? Again, that presents a local opportunity. But again, for those who intend to earn foreign exchange, they can actually go into cotton farming and then export to the US, earn forex very, very easily, as it were, and then also use that to reinvent themselves within the economy. The third point I would like to talk about here again is also some of those palliatives that the government rolled out post-COVID or during the COVID, which I think beyond COVID are into perpetuity. In other words, they don't lapse with COVID. Even if COVID goes away next year or 2 years' time, those incentives continue into perpetuity. And most of them are around the tax incentives. For instance, incentives for small companies whose turnover is less than 25 million naira. They've been completely exempted from taxation. And I think this information needs to go out there. There are final obligations regarding value tax is now basically non-existent. They don't have to file that any longer. And in all of this, what the government is trying to do is to ensure that the business environment for small and medium enterprises is better enhanced to drive the growth that we need in this economy. And I think we need to get out this information to those entrepreneurs so that they can take advantage of them to basically grow their business into these medium and larger organizations. I think the other one that's also very important is to disseminate information around other palliatives which corporate entities have also issued. And specifically, I will talk about the Access Bank interest-free loan, which they rolled out sometime I think in October thereabout. And they did say they have a facility, like 50 billion naira interest-free loan facility to help companies that have been affected by the COVID pandemic to quickly get back on their feet. Now, I don't know how much this information is available out there, but it's there on their website. I mean, they made a lot of noise about it when they rolled it out. And I think for us as Muslims, to the extent that this facility is interest-free, our brothers and sisters should take advantage of it to start up their business or restart their business that have been affected by COVID. And I think it's something that they should quickly buy into. The other one that I think is also important in trying to get out of this COVID-19 pandemic, post-COVID-19, is some of the intervention funds that the CBN has rolled out. And I think my brother did talk to this earlier on, the chairman, Dr. Bashir Oshodi. Some of these intervention funds have been rolled out. And I think the question for us is, how can Muslims partake or fit into this space without going foul of the requirement of our faith with respect to interest and usuri? And I think Brother Bashir also did mention about it. So the question is, how do we articulate all these incentives, all these interventions, to see how small businesses or medium-sized businesses as run by Muslims can take advantage of those interventions to better their business and business and the rest? And then maybe lastly, I don't know how much time I do have left.
So we're actually supposed to round up now.
Okay. Well, lastly, I think Brani did talk about the growing state of the economy. I just want to add to that agri and telecoms, like you did mention, are those sectors that are promising and typically have tended to be growing. And I think Abra should take a bet on those industries and not necessarily is scared of failure, as it were, because Paystack, for instance, two brothers set up Paystack, two friends set up Paystack 5 years ago, sold that business for about $200 million just last year during the pandemic. I mean, they dared the fears, and I mean, they conquered their fears. Started this company just 5 years ago, and 5 years down the line, they went to sell it for $200 million US. So please, my appeal to us all is that we should not, because of fear of failure, not venture into business activities. I would like to pause here. Thank you very much, Jazakumullah khairan to Lemo for the invitation.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for the insights that you also brought. And I think the perspective that you have also brought to it is a very good introduction into the next topic that we have, because you have spoken a lot. Sorry, there's a bit of background noise around me. Anyway, what you have talked about now helps us to have a good understanding of what the entrepreneurs should be looking at, and that fits perfectly into our next topic that will be taken by Alhaji Ridwan Sanusi. So he'll be talking to us about developing an entrepreneurial spirit, especially with the pandemic and all that is going on in the economy. So I would welcome Alhaji Ridwan Sanusi to take us through a 25-minute presentation, and afterwards we'll take another discussion and Q&A. Bismillah.
Sorry, how many minutes do I have? I didn't hear you. How many minutes do I have?
Minutes, but if you can do it in
25.
If you can do it in 20 minutes, we would really appreciate that. And your video is upside down.
Oh, really?
Yes.
My video is upside down.
It's okay.
No, the video is okay. The video is okay.
I think it's okay. I can see myself.
It's okay.
Oh, maybe it's just from my end.
Okay, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers of LEMO for inviting me to this particular event. When I saw the invitation and I saw the list of speakers, I was wowed. Okay, so what am I coming to do here? To just lend my own small voice to the matter. All right, so without taking so much of our time, I'd quickly like to talk about a few things: developing an entrepreneurial mindset or entrepreneurial spirit. One of my mentors, in fact, I have a lot of mentors in this in this room, by the way. One of my mentors, Alhaji Yusuf, had given us a gamut of information about the economy, statistics, data. I'm going to go a bit unconventional, so I don't have slides that I'm going to share because I have about 20 to 25 minutes and I have a lot of things to cover. All right, so the first thing I'd like to say to us, right, so I'm going to be speaking to two sets of people in this room: those that want to start their business and they have that fear, right? Or they are, in an employment position currently, and they have that idea, they have the passion, they have talent, they've got gifts, right? And they have that fear. Or those that are currently running business and they don't really know how to, succeed in their pursuits. Now, the first thing I'd like to say is, let's define an entrepreneur, because some of us really do not really understand who an entrepreneur is, right? So an entrepreneur is basically an individual who identifies a problem, right, for a group of people and then creates solutions to solve that problem in a sustainable way. So I'm going to repeat myself again. An entrepreneur is an individual who identifies a problem for a group of people and then goes to solve this problem in a sustainable way. So an entrepreneur is someone that identifies the problem first and foremost, right? And in this crisis, in these times that we're in, there are so many problems. So if you are thinking of starting your business, this is actually the best time. I mean, in the spirit of ease of doing business, the federal government has, introduced a lot of palliative measures, both from tax, from business registration. If you go on to CAC, you can register your business so easily without the interference or involvement of a lawyer. My mentors have spoken about that. I'm not going into all of those, right? So an entrepreneur is different from a self-employed individual. Some of us, I think Lajini mentioned that some of us are working as independent consultants, right? An entrepreneur is actually someone that builds processes, systems, and people, right? And then it gets to a point where this person can hand over this business to someone to manage on his or her behalf, and then he can focus on something else. An entrepreneur actually gets bored. So he's adventurous. He looks for new opportunities. And again, in this crisis, in this pandemic, this is the best time, wallahi, to be an entrepreneur, because there are so many problems that people are facing. And where there are problems, there are opportunities. Where there are opportunities, there are solutions. And when you create solutions, you make more money. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 things that you need to develop an entrepreneurial spirit. The first is your mindset. So you need to be able to develop that proper mindset, that right mindset that you can do this. You've got it, right? And I'm going to use the story of one of our companions, Abdurrahman bin Auf, right, to talk about, having an entrepreneurial mindset. Remember, most of us actually know this story, right? So he left Mecca, he left all his belongings, he left all his wealth in Mecca, right, for the sake of Allah and for the sake of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He got to Medina, right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we all know, associated the companions with those that were living in Medina, right? And his own companion told him, okay, you know what, I'm going to split my properties into half. You take one and then I'll take the other one. If I'm going to divorce my wife, you take one and then I'll take the other one. What did Abdurrahman bin Auf tell that particular companion? He said, show me the way to the market. That is the mindset that you need to have as an entrepreneur, right? You need to have that right mindset. And I think for a lot of us, especially Muslims in this part of the world, we have a poor money mindset. I'm sorry for saying this, but I think that's really the way I can put it, right? Some of us have poor money mindset. We think piety is close to, or rather, we think that poverty is close to piety, that the more money that I have, the more evil that I become, that the more money that I have, then the more bad or more evil that I commit. Hey, come on, you can't be as pious as Abdurrahman bin Auf. You can't be as pious as Abdullah ibn Mubarak. You can't be as pious as Imam Ali bin Sa'd. You can't be as pious as these people. They were very pious people and they were stupendously rich, right? So what you need to work on is your mindset and have that intention that you are going on this pursuit for the sake of Allah. And as a matter of fact, you could even use your business, your entrepreneurial skills, your empire to preach dawah. I mean, to talk to people about how to run business successfully and all those things. And that's the first thing that you need. The second is a valuable product and service, right? People are in need of, valuable product and service that will meet their needs. Now, one of the things that you need to do when you're identifying a product or a service, right, is to think of what you can actually do to improve on what some business owners are currently doing, right? So how do you make it faster, right? That's where a lot of people are not using, Uber, we're using Airbnb because those services are faster, right? I mean, some of us are using iPhone because, it's so easy, right, to log into your app and get some things done so easily without having to log into your laptop. That's why we can pay an arm and a leg to buy some of these, gadgets, right? So think of a valuable product or service that you can provide to your own audience. I'm still coming back to how to identify your audience. That's the second thing. And then the third one, you need to identify people that are ready to pay for your service. You are not running a religious organization. You're not running an hinge, you're running a business. Remember what I said when I was defining an entrepreneur. He identifies a problem. He creates solutions, right, to this group of people in a sustainable way. In the sustainable way means he's able to generate revenue from it. So if you're running a business for 3 years or 4 years and you're not able to generate so much revenue from it, my bad, you just have to, look up. You have to look at another opportunity, or perhaps you have to pivot, right? So those are the 3 things that I think you need: the mindset, valuable product to service, people that will pay. Choose your audience carefully. Some of us are actually targeting Muslims. It's good. But if you want to target the premium Muslims, target the premium Muslims. So those that may not pay for your services, but even within the Muslim community, they understand they are targeting. For example, Emirates is different from Egypt. Even though both of them, they take Hajj pilgrims to Mecca, right? Egypt is more cheaper than Emirates, right? So Emirates is targeting. Emirates doesn't sell to those that are using Egypt or Rwanda here, right? Focal points targets different audience. So you need to choose your customers carefully. Now, these are the 3 things that you need. What about the 3 things that you do not need, right? 3 things that you do not need. These are things that people think they need, and these are things that are actually holding people back from starting their entrepreneurial pursuit. Meanwhile, they don't need those things to start. The first one is too much money. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need too much money. As a matter of fact, if you have too much money to start your business, it's dangerous because you're not going to be resourceful. You're not going to be thinking of ways to create income. You're not going to be thinking of ways to develop your skills. right? And I know a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners that fell into this trap. They got a lot of money, they went into manufacturing. Meanwhile, they don't even understand the trading half of a business, okay? So if you don't have money, wallahi, I think it's a good thing for you. Just work on yourself, develop your skills. Perhaps you could get co-funders, right? And then give them equity so that I can start the business. The second one, this is also something that I think a lot of us need, you know. Meanwhile, we don't need it, certificates. I started talking about Islamic finance before I got my certificate in Islamic finance. I mean, nobody cares. Nobody's going to ask you, okay, do you have a certification in Islamic finance? But I think here in this part of the world, you know, we place so much emphasis on academic qualifications. Oh, you are from Harvard, you are from Yale. But really, in the entrepreneurial world, I mean, from my own little experience, my mentors can you know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. You don't need certificates to start. I mean, Warren Buffett is arguably the most successful, you know, investor for so many decades, right? Benjamin Graham for so many decades. I can't remember that when I was reading Warren Buffett's profile, I saw that he had a CFA when he started. I don't even know if he has a CFA now or masters, any of such things. You don't need a certificate to start. Just start right now. And then the third one is people's validation, people's opinion. These are the three things that I think are actually holding people back. You want to start your entrepreneurial dream. You want to go out there and provide solutions, you know, create products, fantastic products to help people, right? You are running from pillar to post to show your business ideas to this person. Oh, do you think it's okay? People will tell you otherwise. They are not going to, even if they tell you that, okay, well, this business is okay, you will still have to go and meet someone else to get that person's second opinion. You don't need people's validation. What you need is a proof of concept, right? You need a proof of concept. Get into the action itself. Do something and then you will not show it to the investors, right? Or anybody that may be interested in your business, okay? So these are the three things that you need. Mindset, valuable product to service, people that will pay. Three things that you do not need. Too much money. You don't need too much money. If you don't have money, start. You can be very resourceful, okay? Certificates, you don't need certificates. People's validation, you don't need that. Now, having said that, I'm good again. Like I said, I'm going to go unconventional, right? I don't want to share slides and all those things. I will use a soccer team as a parable to explain how you can develop a successful enterprise, right? How you can develop a successful enterprise. And this is speaking from experience. I don't have MBA, I don't have masters, but I know how to run a business. Now, the first, you know, of course, for those of us who watch football, right? So you have 11 players on the field, you have audience, and then you have a coach. Now listen, please pay attention. So you have a goalkeeper. Now, who is this goalkeeper in your entrepreneurial dream? That goalkeeper is you. You know what? The goalkeeper, right, is the only person on the pitch who is permitted to use all parts of his body. He can use his head, he can use his belly, he can use his leg, he can use his hand, all parts of his body, and that's you. You have to use all the weapons in your arsenal, right? You have to be able to do whatever it takes to succeed. You have to put your soul into it. You are going on a roller coaster. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to be your boss. Tax guys will run after you. Your customers will come after you. If you have employees, they will come after you. So many people will come after you, right? So you're not going to be your boss if you want to be an entrepreneur. So some people have these wrong mindset. Okay, I want to be my own boss. I want to work, you know, when I feel like working. Ladies and gentlemen, you will work 7 days of the week as an entrepreneur if you really want to succeed, right? You will wake up in the middle of the night. You will work when you're supposed to be playing with your family members, when you're supposed to be playing with your friends. You have to put in the work, right? That is grit. And that's what a goalkeeper is. And then you have defenders, right? Who are the defenders? These are, you know, the guys that ensure that there's no leakage, right? There's no leakage. So so you are the goalkeeper. So you create controls, processes, and systems that help you to build your business in order to ensure that there won't be leakages. These are the defenders. And then you move on to the midfielders. So the midfielders, you know, they try to stabilize the pace of the game to ensure that, you know, the game is not going too fast, neither is it going too slow, right? That's your cash flow. So when you're making money from your business, ensure that you keep cash. Like they say, cash is king. Keep cash in your bank account. The goal is not to look rich. The goal is to be rich, right? A lot of young entrepreneurs today, they you know, I don't know what to call it. They want to start business because they see these guys on screens, you know, doing so many amazing things. They're traveling around the world. That's not why you should be an entrepreneur as a Muslim, right? There's so many valuable reasons why you should be an entrepreneur as a Muslim. right? So you need cash. You keep cash in your bank account so that you can, use it to run your business, of course, help your family members and all those things. That's not where you should go and get a Rolls Royce or a Venza, an iPhone or a laptop, a MacBook and all those things, right? You need to put your soul into it. You need to be able to build enough cash flow, right, to succeed in your business. These are your midfielders. Don't forget, we are using a soccer team as a parable, right? So the goalkeeper is yourself. You use everything that you've got, all your weapons in your house now. The defenders, you need to be able to build controls, processes, and systems, right, that would ensure that there won't be leakages. And then the midfielders, they control the pace of the game, right? And then the fourth one, the strikers. The strikers are your products or services, right? Now, if I were to ask you, some of us watch football, right? We watch boxing and all those, other sporting activities. Do you know that, for example, Manchester United, they don't sell. Manchester United is not selling a sporting activity. Manchester United actually sells entertainment, right? And that's why when the spectators are not on the pitch, the players do not feel motivated, right? Because those players are actually your customers. And those customers want to see the strikers score. If the strikers do not score, right, and the defenders are just passing the ball around, the midfielders are just doing whatever, the spectators won't feel happy. They want to see the striker score. And that's your product. Your products must create value for your customers. Ask yourself, can you use this product? Can you use this service that you're creating? Now, having said that, so these are the players on the pitch. Now, what about the manager? Because someone might be thinking, okay, well, the business coach is actually myself. No, you are the goalkeeper. Because again, if you look at the goalkeeper can actually see everything that is going on the pitch right from his own goalpost, right? So as an entrepreneur, you are a leader. You are the visionary, so to say, right? Now, the business coach is the manager. The business coach is the manager. Once you start your entrepreneurial journey, you need to get a business coach. And this is what a lot of young entrepreneurs, Nigerian business owners also fail to realize. You need a business coach. You need a mentor. You need someone to guide you, someone that it may not necessarily be in that business line, right? I mean, most successful managers in the world, like Sir Alex Ferguson, were never most successful footballers, right? So he is in the job of educating you on how you can succeed in your business. It may not necessarily be the one that's going to run the business. It might not have, run the business, before. So you need to get a business coach. So that's the manager. Now, then your audience, and your audience, in my opinion, is the most important aspect of the soccer, play right on the pitch. Why? Because these are people that will pay. These are people that will pay. Now, like I said, choose your audience carefully. Okay, Manchester United, they don't sell to Arsenal fans. Real Madrid, they don't sell to Barcelona fans. Emirates, they don't sell to Egypt head. Focal Point, they don't sell to holders. Right? Choose your audience carefully. Choose an audience that is ready to pay. If you want to sell premium to an audience that will pay premium. Exclusivity is what iPhone is selling. Harvard is selling exclusivity. They don't sell educational services, right? Some of our mentors here, they have all the knowledge, that they could have actually acquired, right, on the job. But they go out to get, certifications from Harvard, Oxford, not because they really need the knowledge, but because of network. Right? Because of network and because of the weight of that certificate, like you're an alumnus of Harvard. Even if you made a third class, just put it there that you're an alumnus of Harvard. I mean, you will get all the jobs in the world, right? Now, that's your audience. Talking about the name, then you need to get a brand name, right? Branding is very, very important to the success of your, enterprise. For example, if you want to sell, let's say, accessories, right? iPhone accessories, you need to choose a name that will connote what you do. Okay, so if you are into fintech, for example, look at just what's the name? Piggy Vest. It makes a lot of sense, right? Piggy Vest, Paystack. Yeah, maybe Apple doesn't really connote what they sell, right? But you need to choose a name that connotes what you actually do. And finally, you need a competition. Right? So and this is also one of the reasons some people don't want to start. This is one of the reasons some people do not want to go into business, because there are competition, right? You need a competition to succeed. You need a healthy competition. if Manchester United is not, going toe-to-toe with Manchester City, Manchester City will be lackadaisical on the pitch, right? If Liverpool is not going toe-to-toe with Arsenal, Arsenal or Liverpool will be lackadaisical. You need a healthy competition, right? You need a healthy competition. Now, speaking of brand, even from an Islamic point of view, right? The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that, okay, we follow his sunnah, and the sunnah of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, right? Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, and Ali. Now, when we hear of these companions, right, talking about these 4 companions, that is exclusivity, right? Not to say that the other ones are not great companions. They were great companions, but obviously you can't compare these 4 companions to those ones. So you need to find a way to be the top 3 in your field. So when they mention Islamic finance in Nigeria, for example, you know the names that will come to your mind, right? When they mention, consulting in Nigeria, you know the names that will come to your mind. So KPMG, for example, they don't sell to everyone, right? PwC, they don't sell to everyone. So again, you need to choose your brand. You need to choose your audience carefully. Now, what about those of us that have started a business and we are still struggling? We haven't really made, so much revenue in our business. So one of the things that I would advise you to do is to pivot, right? Please don't get stuck in that business idea, right? You can't be as passionate as the people that want to buy the products from you. And that's what a lot of people do not realize. So you create this product, you put your soul into this product. And the people that want to buy this product, they don't even need the product in the first instance. So you need to identify the problem for them, right? And then create a solution that will meet their needs. So don't put your soul, don't put your heart into the product until when you have realized the people, or you have identified the people that are in need of this product or in need of this service. So one of the things you can do is to pivot. They call it and sweet pivot during the heat of the pandemic. Facebook, as we all know, pivoted, right? HP, they pivoted. These companies didn't start out the way we know them to be today. Okay, so if you are running a business and it's not so successful at this point in time, pivot, look for other things that you can do within your industry. All right, so one of the things that I would also like to say is that this is, again, the best time for anyone to start a business. The federal government has introduced a lot of interventions, a lot of palliative measures, in the spirit of ease of doing business to support small business owners. Now, finally, like I said, I'm going unconventional. Finally, I'd like to quote this verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Talaq, Quran chapter 68, verse 7. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيُنْفِقُ ذُو سَاعَةٍ مِنْ سَاعَتِهِ وَمَنْ قُدِرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقُهُ فَلْيُنْفِقْ مِمَّا آتَاهُ اللَّهُ لَا يُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا مَا آتَاهَا سَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ عُسْرٍ يُسْرًا. Allah says, for those that He has actually provided enough wealth, like He has expanded their risk, He has expanded their wealth, they should spend from that. And for those that He has restricted their wealth, right, they have little and they fear that, oh, this little, may go away if you spend it. Allah says, spend from that little. Allah says, spend from that little. He does not charge a soul beyond what He has provided for that soul. And of course, going by the theme of this particular event, Allah will bring about hardship for Allah will bring about relief for every hardship. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think I did 20 minutes, right? Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? How many minutes did I do?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Assalamu alaikum. Amda, please, you need to unmute yourself. Okay, I think Amda is currently experiencing some challenges. While she's sorting that out, please, can we invite Alhaji Tajuddin Shobayo to discuss the topic, being an entrepreneur building an entrepreneurship spirit. Assalamu alaikum, Alhaji Shobayo.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can I test that the audio is clear enough?
Yes, it is very clear. Please proceed.
So, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We thank Allah for His mercies, who has made it possible for us to be able to gather online to discuss all that we've been discussing. I would like to start first and foremost with an hadith in Sahih Muslim. It's hadith 202,664. I won't quote him verbatim. What the hadith talked about is that we should strive. He encouraged all of us to strive. And as we are striving, we should avoid whatever the outcome, saying, what if I've done this? What if I've done this? I will center my discussion around this because I think he speaks to the concept of entrepreneurship. Alhamdulillah, a lot has been said. The brother actually said quite a lot of things about entrepreneur. So I will just add a little bit in terms of what I think will benefit us for people that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs and for current entrepreneurs in the current economic climate. The Nigerian economy is oil dependent. Oil dependent, not necessarily in terms of its contribution to GDP, but because it determines how much the government spends. It's a mainstay of our revenue. The problem in Nigeria today is a revenue problem. And it is that revenue problem that has translated from the federal government to state government and into individual households. Even the most richest person in Nigeria, ask him between the start of last year and current time, what has been his experience. He would have seen a lot of variables on his disposable income. I mean the income available for individual or company or a government to spend. That's the way I've used the concept of disposable income. So for entrepreneurs, the primary thing they need to do in this environment that we find ourselves in Nigeria today, they need to ensure that they deliver value. You see, for any product or a service, if whoever is buying it sees that it's getting value, he will keep buying it. But as soon as he doesn't see value in it, he will stop buying it. So whatever we do, whether it's an idea that we're just maturing, or it's an idea that we are already maturing, that is on the way to the market, we need to ensure that the value it speaks to is sacrosanct. Without this happening, what we will see, because of the low level of people's disposable income, everybody has concentrated his income on spend that is most crucial to him. And on the basis of that, after basic need, there's actually very little money left for other things. So whatever people will put money on will be things that make the most value for them. That's one. Then secondly, for entrepreneur, the major problem that they will be experiencing in the current economic context is the issue of liquidity, issue of money. Because indeed they exist in this same society, there will be dependency on them. So one major thing that entrepreneurs need to do, they need to ensure that they distinguish and separate their business from their personal self. If I'm in the business of saying merchandise of, let's say, for lack of better word, bread, basic need, everybody eats bread these days. Some bake it at home, some buy in shops. If that is my business, primarily, I need to ensure that that business is distinct and separate from myself, such that the money for the business is not my money. That is the only way we can give some level of protection to the business in the current economic climate. For businesses and entrepreneurs that does not make this distinction, very often they find themselves that they don't even have money to run the basic need of the business. I have experienced this in among a couple of people in the current context. There are people, because of the liquidity in the economy and the fact that there's low income, there's no cash available to people, they just keep spending their money. It is only after some time, when they realize that even to meet the operational need of their business, they don't have the cash, because they've not separated the business from themselves. And on the basis of that, they just kept spending and only discover that they don't have money to spend anymore. The third thing that will benefit entrepreneur in the current climate is that we have seen businesses, how the post-COVID era, the COVID, has dealt with their income during COVID. And some of them are still actually not out of the woods yet. And this is also true for entrepreneur. What has made them to survive is to be able to harness all the elements of their value in the business. For lack of better example, if you look at the corporate account of some of the small businesses we have, or some of the businesses we have in the Nigerian economy, you can see a business in the same sector, but simply because it's providing a separate service different from another business, it will be thriving while the other one is not thriving. So if I'll give a specific example, if you are a caterer, for example, given in the COVID era and the post-COVID era, and all you do is that you cook food in large quantities to give them. First and foremost, COVID has reduced opportunity for large ceremony. So your business will be impacted. How can you move forward? But people still got to eat. Perhaps one option is to go to private service. People still need to eat in their household. So instead of cooking for 100, if you have 10 families and you cook for 5 persons each in each family, that is 50 already. And all you need is logistics to move the food around. What entrepreneurs need to do now, they need to be creative to see how they modify their business to fit into the current context. This will also help survival of entrepreneurs in the current climate. I then want to talk about the personal attributes and what I think is most required in the current climate. The fact of the matter is that we are what we are. Most entrepreneurs, even if they are just over 20, at 20 years, some of your behaviors are set. But psychologists have also told us that you can unlearn and you can relearn. And the speaker also talked about the need to acquire education and useful education. But in terms of learning and relearning in relation to behavior, it can be consciously done. Even psychology has said that personality can be changed. If it is not changing permanently, it could be changed substantially. So what am I talking about? There is no shortcut in being hardworking and being competitive in the current climate for an entrepreneur. There's no shortcut. It is not enough to know all the aspects of your business. You also then need to be hardworking about it. It is only when you do this, you then be able to see all the elements of the business. But what we see these days is that a couple of us are laid back. And because of this, we only expect people that are running business to be working very hard. And on the basis of that, entrepreneurship doesn't appeal. But it's a behavioral thing. It is simply a behavioral thing. Everything that a person does, one needs to be sufficiently hardworking to be able to deliver what is required of the person. The second thing that entrepreneurs need, beyond being hardworking, is that they need to be competitive. So being competitive is a relative thing. If you are selling something and people that are selling the same thing have an opportunity of showcasing that they add value more than you are not competitive. And Islam does not stop us from being competitive. Even if for people in employment, you need to be competitive. Otherwise, you will find out that when they need to reduce number of staff, you'll be among the list that will have to be sent away. Competitiveness is a relative measure. It means for a business, if the unit cost of coming up with a cake for caterer, a birthday cake, for example, or anniversary cake, or a cake just for a family occasion, is say 100 naira, you must continuously look to see how you can do your own below that average 100 naira in the market. You must continuously see it. If you're able to do it and others are not able to do it, essentially what you are doing, you're able to get a little bit more margin for yourself. And if you really want to create and take market from them, you can actually provide some form of discount on the price, which they will not be able to do because they don't have the same lower cost as you. So competitiveness is so important. So let me just say one last thing. The other thing is that there are a couple of opportunities that are opening up. A lot has been said, but the one I want to emphasize is the African Free Trade Agreement, which will take effect this year, I think. It was signed last year or year before. So what this means is that the borders for African countries will be open. I was reading a week ago about a Malian who had built an estate in Port Harcourt. There's nothing stopping anybody in Nigeria, for example, that's say manufacturing shoes, to start looking for opportunity across the African continent where he could take his shoes to and make money from it. Effectively, what this means is that the market has been opened up from that perspective. Brexit has also happened. I'm sure Brexit will also provide more opportunity, while it will also close some opportunities. Entrepreneurs need to be upward, looking at the environment to see what they can do to improve their business. I'll stop here. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakumullah khairan for your presentation. So right now we will take some of the questions that have come up in the chat box. As I advised in the chat box, we would like to take some additional questions if you have any forward. Hello?
12:15 I will be.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just take some of the questions that have come up. In the interest of time, I would advise that anyone that has any additional questions should please post them in the chat box now. But I don't know if we still have Alhaji Yusuf. So a few of the questions are directed to him. So the first question is, where would you suggest as a choice for locating a medium to large scale food manufacturing company, considering security, the after infrastructure, and all of that in the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria? I don't know if we still have Alhaji Yusuf, or if maybe Alhaji Ridwan can take that.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
So the question was, where would you suggest as a location, an ideal location for a food manufacturing plant? And this person was also considering not only the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, but looking beyond Nigeria into other African countries. And there was a related question that was also about considering the ease of doing business in Nigeria and how other African countries are encouraging business owners. Do we see any potential opportunities in locating in specific locations in Nigeria or
businesses that are into manufacturing of bread, food items basically, and they intentionally put their manufacturing factories, right, their production equipment and other things that has to do with production essentially in these areas. Of course, your administrative arm of the business can be in Lagos, right, to facilitate transactions between the business and the customers.
All right, thank you for that. And just in addition to that, I think the best bet, if you're trying to locate your facility or if there's anything worth considering, what you would need to do is to do a proper feasibility study, and you would need to check the area that you want to invest in. So check the available locations, just like Alhaji Ridwan has said. Look at the logistics, the potentials you have, the challenges, the opportunities, and all of that. Just just not taking it as a high-level assessment. I think you need to do a detailed feasibility study to ensure that you're maximizing the opportunities available, whether you're considering building your facility in Nigeria or even outside Nigeria, given the opportunities that are available.
Right. Just
So
a quick
I'll
one
just
as well.
move to, okay.
Right, just a quick one. So for those who are really starting out and they want to go into manufacturing, personally, I'd advise that the person should really understand the trading arm of the business first, because there are a whole lot of issues around manufacturing, right? Especially when you're getting money from people, you're not using your own money. Even if you're using your own money, you want to put all your money into manufacturing, it may end up, being a failed business. So it's better that you understand the trading, because trading is really simple. You buy and sell. So if you're able to do that for a couple of months or years, you understand that business properly, then you're able to put in, so much into the manufacturing. So that's what I usually advise, so that going into manufacturing for the first time to do. Understand the value chain process of the business before you start manufacturing.
All right, thank you very much for that. I'll just move.
If you allow me to add to that, to the answer provided. So because I think the churn of an existing food manufacturing business to other African countries, if to take the opportunity of after. So what I would advise is, first and foremost, is the market. You need to establish indeed as a market where you are going to. Just like the brother explained, the reason why you should be of benefit to cite a business close to Lagos is because of the market in Lagos. The primary consideration, the first thing for any business or an entrepreneur, you need to have something that the market wants. Once you know there's a need that the product will satisfy, then you then need to establish where the market is. Depending on the other items you need to manufacture the product, between that and the market will determine where you will relocate your business. So we should not just relocate our business because of the opportunity of AFA. We need to establish that indeed the market door exists wherever for that the business will service wherever we are relocating it to. Just like our sister said, if you do a proper feasibility, you'll be able to see that first and foremost before you do the relocation. Assalamu alaikum.
Let me just very quickly, if you don't mind, from a banking perspective, in this part of the world, Nigerian banks, conventional and Islamic, find it very difficult to do startups, right? So if you're going to do startup, you need to generate your own cash, initial cash. You can do that by bringing in partners that can do that for you. You need to identify partners that can support you in terms of reducing your cost of setup, which is very important. In the same vein, you then need to identify where you can get such equity or easy flow of cash anywhere within the continent. I tell you now that I mentioned that. So that consciousness must be at the back of your mind, because it's so difficult to get equity. In Islamic finance, if you put in equity, mudaraba, in a business, and that business fails, your owner of capital loses everything, which is high risk, even to the financial institution, except where it's a perfected or there's existing cash flow. There's a difference between cash flow and projection. Based on what you are projected, cash flow is what is ongoing already. Right? I thought it's not that I mentioned that.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So I'll just move to another question that was for Alhaji Yusuf. The question is, are there any prospects in renewable energy investments in Nigeria? So just any perspective you have on that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a slide that talks about the economic outlook, and one of them, although I didn't speak to it, it's energy. There are opportunities for renewable energy, but in my view, probably not at the scale, not at a large scale. I think oil and gas will continue to be a big chunk. Oil and gas continue to be a big chunk of this economy for quite a while, but I see opportunities for solar, but again, not at a large scale. So there will be opportunities for renewable energy. The thing is just to find the right context. So if you're in the north, if you're in a desert area, if you're in the plains where solar makes sense, then you want to supplement with solar. If but I'm hopeful that the public mains will continue to be there, and oil and gas continue to be there. But there's a mix where renewables can play.
Okay, let me just add up to that. So renewable energy is important, right? Green economy and all of that is very important. We have just 4 gigawatts in Nigeria. South Africa has got 45 gigawatts. So yes, power is necessary. But in the last 10 years, the propositions on renewable energy, they look nice, they look viable, but practically, we have not seen a serious level of viability in terms of, do you have your power purchase agreement? Are people willing to pay so much? So viability-wise, in most financial institutions, is not on the priority because we have not seen it happen. I thought it's good I also mentioned that. So when propositions are coming in this area, how money will be returned must be properly addressed, either conventional or Islamic finance. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, Sister Sulaiman, I think it's important for us to also put it in context, just like Alhaji Nia said. In Europe today, there are plans to phase out fossil fuel dependent cars either by 2040 or by 2050. Unfortunately, we've not had such categorical statements across major African countries, Nigeria inclusive. So to that extent, it's a bit difficult for us to say people should begin to look at that. Although it's also important to note that the Ministry of Petroleum Resources has also recognized that, and I think there are some moves towards putting in place some policy statements around Nigeria's journey to that level where there will be less reliance on fossil fuel, and then we'll be talking about renewable energy. But like Brother Eunice said, there are no clear-cut indication as to when the country intends to begin to move towards cleaner energy and renewable energy, and therefore it might be too early in the day to begin to say people should, pour their wealth into this kind of business setup. Except, of course, maybe you have captive areas like in the north or in the middle belt where that need is accentuated. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that contribution. So I think the last question that we have here is, we have 2 questions. So the first one was any advice on businesses that one could engage in without necessarily being physically involved. I don't know if that's a question that can be answered on this platform or if someone just wants to take a stab at it.
So coming without being physically involved. Is that what you said?
Yes, in light of COVID-19. So I guess the person is just trying to look for business ideas that would not necessarily involve working with people directly so that everyone can still maintain social distancing.
Okay, I mean, it's good for me to mention at this point that Islamic finance or Islamic financial institutions, they are entrepreneurial institutions. So they can go into business directly. And so many of them have identified lovely portfolios, where you can come in and put your money, so the financial institution itself becomes the entrepreneur. So sometimes under Islamic finance, rather than wait for entrepreneurs to come up, but like I said earlier on, we've not seen many of them from amongst ourselves, right? So rather than wait for them to come to you, you create that opportunity. You then look for people to partner and bring in more funds. You don't bring in the funds, you put in your own funds. Yes, so yes, there can be such where the person is just there, and then somebody does all the other work for you. You can contact us for such. Thank you.
All right. And there's also another question on halal funding opportunities, but I think that's something that you've just addressed, so that covers that. And someone also asked about, so just in line with this, if there are any options for Islamic financing other than loans that you can get from Jaiz Bank. So the person is just looking for a potential list of Islamic finance providers.
Yeah, there's several options. If I was started to happen more recently, is that conventional financial institutions, finance houses, asset management companies, little companies here and there. They're having loads of clients, and they're actually bringing them forward to say, hey, these are opportunities. Where they cannot do such, I mean, for my own company right now, we help them, we become their technical partners, right, to make sure that their products and services are compliant. And we do that, almost at zero cost, such that the proposition can be out there all the time. Yes, so there are, again, you can be contacted, to build such further. Thank you.
Okay, and just in line with this, there's also another question for you, sir, Dr. Bashir. So the question is, what sector of the economy should our budget be given much recognition that would enhance entrepreneurial spirit in the country? Just in your own opinion, and we can take the opinions of other panelists as well.
I tell people jokingly, if I'm in power, I will do only two things: health and education, right? Just health and education. While producing or having opportunities for businesses to grow by providing infrastructure. You provide infrastructure for us to cook, and that way everybody takes part in it, right? If you like, industrial parks or industrial estates. I mean, why do you have to, if you want to produce ordinary pure water, you're going to have to build, you have to buy your own land, buy your machine. So your cost of fund is too much. So because it's too much, you can't produce effectively. You're going to run in a big loss in a very short period of time, right? And the banks are conscious of this reality, right? So yes, so education and health, right? However, infrastructure that will enhance productivity. That's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. So there's a question about your contact. How can we contact you, sir? Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I'll share that. Yeah, I can share that. But again, I mean, if you Google my name, I'm sure you can also find me very easily. I'm a public servant.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think right now we don't have any additional questions, but the general feedback that we're getting is that this has been very insightful, and a lot of people have gotten some tips, at least, on what options they should be considering, how they should be thinking more in an entrepreneurial way, and the factors they need to consider in starting their own businesses and in getting finance and in related items. So I would say a big thank you to our panelists today. And if there are no additional questions, I will just hand over to the chairman to give us his closing remarks. Jazakumullah khairan.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it was a lovely session. I enjoyed it. One of the things I picked is availability of cash. But you know what? Believe it or not, there's so much cash in Nigeria. There's just so much of it. What the cash does not have is investment destination. Doesn't know where to go to. At the end of the lockdown in Nigeria last year, there was a sukuk. Government wanted to raise just 150 billion naira. You know how much they got? 800 billion naira. 90% of that fund came from the conventional space. So you know what so it then occurred to me that, it means there's money around. If there's a project right now that has cash flow, of course, and you say you need 5 billion naira, you can raise that money in a week. It's that easy because there's fund everywhere. You don't have good investments, right? So what I'll say is that for a lot of us, if you're unable to, because again, one very important aspect of business is corporate governance. So a lot of small businesses don't have that. You're unable to come up. I mean, one of our brothers talked about having a brand. We don't have that brand. So you have to align with those that have the brand. You have to align such that you can have strong corporate governance. So partnership is very important. You look for the right partner, not your former secondary school classmates. No, partners that can give you equity, skills, or knowledge, or if you like, connection. In fact, I tell people that the 5th factor of production is connection. John Maxwell, law of connection, is the 5th factor of production and is the most important factor of production, right? How do you use connection to bring a lot of things? Brother talked about Abdurrahman bin Auf. You know, he's my, I mean, I see him as my favorite Saba, right? Because he's able to structure transactions from nothing, just by using his connections to put things together. In fact, every night I think and say, how would Abdurrahman bin Auf, how would he have done this in the middle of problems? How would he have solved this problem? So I think that's very important. Documentation. You know, I mean, I've been doing banking for a while. A lot of us, among the Muslims, do not have documentation. How can you have a business without an account? How can you prove to me that I want to give you money, that you make 5,000 every day? There's no proof if it doesn't pass through your account. It must pass through your account. You know, how do you convince me that I've made a payment out or payment that's coming? So documentation is extremely important. Audited financials. You cannot ask for anything above 20 million without audited financials. 3 years audited financials, right? If a startup, what stops you from, like I mentioned in the beginning, partnering with somebody that already has a brand? Just for the first few years, you don't have to do it all by yourself. So sometimes you need that synergy to be able to do things. Cash flow. Cash flow is the most important thing in any business. If you have a startup, you must build cash flow for the first few months. Before you even start to think about going to somebody that wants to finance, you must experience it. So the first thing I ask someone, have you done it before? He says, no. I'm not going to give the person the money because you have not experienced, you have to experience the shocks, the issues, the problems that come with it. And so at this stage, for every proposition, there's already a ready-made answer. And the last 10 years it has not worked. Why do you want to do it? You know, so you must have all of these things in place. Then entrepreneurial zeal, the power to be able to go into a transaction in the middle of crisis and make it successful. That power is lacking in so many of us. Right? So that zeal, that power of the heart, you know, if you look at the Makasur Sharia, one of the first elements of it is the human self, the ability of people to display power, energy, zeal. We don't have it. So that's very important. In fact, that's what one of our speakers call hard work. The ability to go the extra mile to make sure that you are successful at all costs in a way that is Sharia compliant as much as possible. I think I'll just stop there now. But very importantly also, what I've discovered is that a lot of us need advice, free of charge. I mean, at Trust Bank we can offer that free of charge. Advice on what to do, how to do it, and how to be successful, right? That advice is what a lot of young people don't know, they don't have, because they've not done it before. Even when they've done it before, they have not scaled. If you have a business where you are spending, your balance sheet is just 100 naira, you cannot ask for 1,000 naira. It's unrealistic. If it's 100 naira, you can ask for 200, you can ask for 300. That's the limit of it, right? So you need free advice. I think that's one of the things that we should start to do at LEMU, where we just bring in entrepreneurs, not so much of a talk show, and just look at their specific propositions and help them to tweak it in a manner that is bankable. That will be all for me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So thank you very much, sir. So I would hand over to the Imam to give us the closing remarks and closing prayer.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. It has been an interesting session. We appreciate everyone who has been part of this program. May Allah reward you all abundantly. May Allah make it beneficial to every one of us. To LEMU leadership, may Allah continue to be with you and bless you. So as it was said, a lot of things have been mentioned. And one area that also struck my attention is the issue of Islamic finance. I think it's an emerging opportunity that a lot of people have not keyed into. So we have a lot of opportunities in this area. The Nigeria government, for example, has employed one area of Islamic finance through Sukuk. And we can all see when we travel around, we see the rules that are built from funds that were raised through Sukuk. That is just one of the benefits of the many benefits of Islamic finance. We can try to read more and study more on these so that we can benefit immensely from this. Another area is the investment opportunities that have been mentioned. There are many investment opportunities today. Sometimes the interests are called profits. Profits are called interest. We need to know the principle, Islamic principle on this, so that whenever we are investing in any, so we will be, we will not be doing haram, and we may not also deprive ourselves of what is halal, thinking that it is haram. We need to study on this. And generally, as entrepreneurs and whatever we may be doing, customer services matter a lot in whatever we do. So we have discovered that when it comes to this moral uprightness and customer service, many of us are still very lacking. We need to work on this so that we can project ourselves well and project our Islam is beauty also. May Allah continue to be with us. And finally, we have seen from our discussions today that your certificate only does not matter. To say that only my certificate matters, no, you need mentorship. You need mentorship. Whatever certificates you may have, that may be some, you need this certificate, university degree, and more than that. But mentorship is very important. There are many short courses one can take today in order to, to fund yourself and develop yourself and become a better person, so that you can also fit into the digital world that we have found ourselves now. May Allah continue to be with us all. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. سبحانك اللهم ربنا بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
وعليكم
وبركاته.